The wind howled like a living thing, clawing at the corners of every window and screaming through the alleyways of Hollow Ridge, a forgotten town tucked into the jagged folds of Montana's winter-worn mountains. Most people were home by now, fires burning in stoves, lights glowing faint behind frosted panes. But Marcus Bennett wasn't most people. He worked late. Always had, always would. Tonight, the last hallway of Milner High echoed with the distant hum of vending machines and the scuff of his work boots on wax tile. As the night custodian, Marcus cleaned up the chaos that kids left behind, gum under desks, graffiti in bathrooms, and secrets spilled in whispers too loud for school walls. He didn't mind the quiet. After his wife passed away 2 winters ago, it was in the silence that he found a strange kind of comfort. A routine. A purpose. Especially now that he was raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lila, on his own. Marcus zipped up his jacket, pulled on gloves he'd repaired twice already, and stepped out into the storm. The snow hit him like a wall, thick and fast. He adjusted the straps of his worn backpack and headed toward the lot where his van sat alone under a blanket of white. The drive home was muscle memory. 5 turns, 1 long slope, 2 bridges. He could do it half asleep. He always passed Moraine Lake on his way, but tonight, as he came around the bend, something caught in his headlights, just a flicker, like a deer or maybe a drifting branch. He slowed. Then he saw it again. A figure. Someone was out there, near the lake's edge, half blurred by snow. His stomach tightened. He pulled over, tires skidding slightly, and leapt out into the cold. The snow swallowed his feet and bit at his face. "Hey," he shouted, but the wind shredded his voice. He ran down the slope, eyes stinging. Near the lake, he found the figure, young, small, crawling across the ice in jerky, desperate movements. A girl, he realized. Bare hands. 1 shoe missing. Her coat flapped uselessly around her. She didn't look up until he was almost there. Her eyes were wild, confused. "Stop," Marcus yelled, arms out. "You'll fall through." But it was too late. Her elbow gave out. A loud, stomach-sickening crack echoed across the lake. Marcus dropped to his knees, crawling forward carefully, spreading his weight. "Hold on," he shouted. The girl gasped as the ice split. Water gushed up around her legs. She tried to fight it, but the cold was a monster, dragging her under. Marcus lunged, catching her by the arms just before she disappeared. The ice screamed beneath them, spider webbing outward. His gloves soaked through instantly. He pulled. She was dead weight. Her eyes rolled back, mouth open in a silent cry. With a yell, he heaved her back onto solid ice. The lake spat cold curses as it snapped behind them. He didn't wait, scooped her into his arms and stumbled back up the hill. His van was still running. He kicked open the door, shoved the girl inside, and turned the heat up to full blast. She was trembling violently, lips blue. Marcus tore off his coat, wrapped it around her, and spoke quietly. "You're okay. You're gonna be okay." Her eyes fluttered. Her mouth moved, but he could barely hear. "Avery," she whispered. "Tell her I tried." And then she went still. Marcus sat frozen for a moment, the name echoing in his head. Avery. Who the hell was Avery? He didn't know. But what he did know was this girl hadn't just wandered onto the ice. She'd run from something. And whatever she was running from, it nearly won. He threw the van into gear and drove, tires slipping, headlights cutting through white curtains. His cabin was 10 minutes away, maybe less if the roads held. Lila would be asleep, probably curled up with her book and her flashlight, the way she always did when he worked late. As he pulled into the drive, the porch light flickered like it always did, an old bulb that refused to die. He grabbed the girl, still limp and icy, and rushed inside. Lila stirred on the couch as the door slammed behind him. "Dad?" He set the girl down gently on the other couch, then leaned over his daughter. "Go get the thickest blanket we have, kiddo. The wool one. Now." Without question, Lila darted off down the hallway. Marcus knelt by the girl's side. Her face was pale, but there was a pulse. He brushed wet hair from her forehead and whispered, "You're safe now." Lila returned with the blanket, dragging it behind her. Together, they wrapped the girl up like a fragile secret. She didn't wake. Didn't speak again. But the name she'd whispered, Avery, lodged in Marcus's chest like a thorn. He sat beside her long into the night, fire crackling low in the hearth, the storm howling outside. He wasn't sure what came next. Didn't know who she was or what she'd meant by that name. But Marcus had seen people give up. Had nearly done it himself once. And something about that girl's last whisper. It didn't sound like surrender. It sounded like a message. I hope handed off to the first soul who would carry it. So, Marcus did. The morning sunlight didn't creep, it crashed through the cabin windows like it had something to prove. Marcus blinked awake from the floor near the fireplace, his back aching, his boots still on. The girl was still there, curled tightly under the thick wool blanket. She hadn't moved much during the night, but her breathing was steady now, soft. Lila was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside her, holding a cup of cocoa with both hands. "She's still sleeping," Lila whispered, like they were in church. Marcus rubbed his eyes and sat up. "Yeah. That's good. Her body's probably still in shock." He stood and stretched, joints popping like old wood. He walked to the kitchen and put on a pot of coffee, the rich, bitter smell filling the air like armor. When he came back with 2 mugs, one for him and one for Lila, with extra marshmallows, he found the girl beginning to stir. Her fingers twitched. Her lips parted. Then her eyes opened. Hazel. No, almost golden. But wary. Very wary. "Hey," Marcus said gently, kneeling beside the couch. "You're safe. You fell through the ice last night? I pulled you out and brought you here." The girl's gaze darted around the room, as if checking for exits. "Where am I?" "Hollow Ridge. Just outside the town limits. You're in my home. I'm Marcus, and this is my daughter Lila." Lila offered a small wave and a marshmallow. "You can have one if you want." The girl looked down, then at her own trembling hands, then slowly took the marshmallow and placed it on her tongue like it was a foreign object. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Well, technically, you shouldn't have been on the lake either," Marcus said gently, "but here we are." She tried to sit up but winced, her body clearly still half frozen. "Easy," Marcus said. "No one's asking questions right now. You just need rest." She swallowed hard, jaw working like she wanted to say something else. "How long have I been here?" "Since late last night. It's morning now. Blizzard's still out there, so you're not going anywhere anytime soon." "I can't stay," she said quickly. "You don't understand. I don't have to. You needed help, and you got it. That's all." She studied him for a long moment. Her breath hitched. Her hand clutched the blanket tighter. "I didn't want to be found." Marcus tilted his head. "I didn't find you," he said. "You fell into my path. That broke something." Not loud. Just a shift in her eyes, like a door unlatched. "Do you have a name?" he asked. There was a long pause. Then, "Rhea." He knew immediately it wasn't her real name. It was the way she said it, too smooth, too rehearsed. But he nodded anyway. "Nice to meet you, Rhea." She didn't return the sentiment. Instead, she leaned her head back against the cushion and closed her eyes. Later that day, while Rhea slept, Marcus cleaned up around the cabin. Lila worked on a crayon drawing, of the lake, the house, and a tiny stick figure in the snow with a red scarf. "That's her," she said. Marcus nodded. "You're a good artist." "I think she's sad," Lila said quietly, her brow furrowed. "But not like the kind of sad when someone won't let you pick a cookie. Like a forever sad." Marcus didn't answer right away. He crouched beside her and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I think maybe you're right." That evening, while Lila read aloud from a fairy tale book, Rhea finally sat up for the first time and asked for tea. Her voice was raspy, like it had been dragged across gravel. As Marcus poured water into the kettle, she glanced around the room. Her eyes lingered on a framed photo above the mantel, Marcus, holding a baby, a smiling woman beside him. "Your wife?" He nodded. "Sarah. She passed away a couple years ago." Rhea didn't say "I'm sorry." Instead, she asked, "How did you keep going?" Marcus stirred a spoon into her tea and handed it to her without answering. When she took the first sip, her eyes softened. It was chamomile with a bit of lemon peel. His wife's favorite. Somehow, that felt right. "I heard you say a name," Marcus said gently. "Last night. When you passed out." Her entire body tensed. "Avery," he said. She swallowed. Looked down at the steam rising from her cup. Her knuckles were wide on the ceramic. Marcus didn't press. But then, in the quiet, she whispered, "She was my sister. I was trying to get to her." Marcus waited. "I haven't seen her in almost 4 years," Rhea continued. "Not since. Not since everything happened." "What happened?" She hesitated. Then, voice brittle, "They made me give her up." Marcus blinked. "You mean?" "I was 17. Pregnant. My parents. They had money, status, expectations. No daughter of theirs was going to be a mother before she was a doctor." The words hung there, sharp and aching. "They said it was a mistake." That I was just emotional. I signed a paper I didn't understand. I never even got to hear her heartbeat. Marcus sat slowly on the opposite couch. He felt like the room had shifted, like grief itself had materialized and taken a seat. I tried to forget, she said. To bury it. Changed my name. Left home. Got lost on purpose. But last week, I found a letter. From the clinic. A clerical error. They sent me a copy of the record. It had her name. Avery. The name I gave her in my head. Her voice cracked. I needed to go. To find some place, anywhere, that could remember her with me. Not erase her. Marcus stared into the fire. You've come a long way to say her name. Rhea nodded slowly. I thought I'd die before anyone else ever did. There was a long silence. Then Lila, who had been listening more than reading, said softly, she can live here. In her name, I mean. We could say it sometimes. Just to remember. Rhea blinked at her, stunned. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. This house? It's held a lot of names. Some still echo. Rhea's breath shuddered. That night, she didn't write anything down. She simply sat by the fire, whispering one word over and over again like a prayer. Avery. A name pulled from the cold and given warmth. And in Marcus's chest, a new ember caught flame. By the time the storm passed, the cabin felt like something more than just shelter. The snow had slowed to a gentle flurry, and daylight filtered in through the windows, soft and golden, like the world itself was trying to exhale. Rhea stood in the living room for the first time since arriving, wrapped in a borrowed sweater several sizes too big. She didn't say much, but her presence had changed. She no longer looked like she might bolt the moment someone turned away. Instead, she watched the fire, ran her fingers along the spines of books on the shelf, and listened. Marcus had noticed the shift too. He didn't call it healing, not yet. But he could see the way her shoulders weren't always tensed anymore. How she slept through the night without waking up gasping. It was like her soul had begun to thaw, much like the snow outside. Lila, of course, had adopted her entirely. Are you staying forever? She asked over breakfast, swinging her legs beneath the table. Rhea blinked at her toast, surprised by the question. I don't. I'm not sure. You could, Lila said simply, then shrugged and went back to her cereal. Marcus hid a smile behind his coffee cup. Later that day, while Rhea helped organize a cluttered storage closet in the cabin, something she'd offered to do without being asked, Marcus found a small box on the top shelf. Inside was an old photo album, one he hadn't opened since Sarah passed. As he sat flipping through it in the living room, Rhea returned with dusty hands and spotted the album in his lap. You miss her, she said. Every day, Marcus replied quietly. Rhea sat beside him on the couch, not too close, but not distant either. What was she like? Marcus smiled, eyes still on the photos. Smart. Sarcastic. Fierce when she loved someone. She used to make me laugh so hard I couldn't breathe. He closed the book. She taught me how to sew, he added. Said it was survival. For when life tore at the seams. Rhea nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the crackling fire. You think it's possible to keep living? Even after the best parts are gone? I think, Marcus said carefully, the best parts don't leave. They just change shape. That evening, Lila brought her sketch pad to Rhea. Can you help me draw a name? Rhea blinked. A name? Yeah, Lila said. Like a picture of it. Something that feels like what it means. Rhea stared at the page, unsure how to respond. What name? She asked eventually. Lila shrugged. Avery. Rhea went very still. Marcus looked up from the sink but said nothing. Lila pulled a crayon from her box, sunflower yellow, and pushed it toward Rhea. I think her name would be this color. Rhea swallowed hard. Then, slowly, she took the crayon. The picture began as a series of curves. Then a ribbon. Then a small, open flower. She didn't speak as she drew. Neither did Lila. But when she finished, Rhea stared at the page like it was something holy. She's beautiful, Lila said, resting her chin on the table. She was, Rhea whispered, then caught herself. She is. The next morning, Marcus went into town to restock essentials and check on a few things at the school. He returned with more than groceries, he brought news. There's an art program starting up again at the community center, he said, setting down a bag of apples. Kids mostly. But they could use extra hands. Rhea looked up from the couch. And you thought of me? He gave her a half smile. You're good with colors. And stories. She considered that for a moment. Then, I haven't been around kids much. Not since. Everything. "You don't have to decide now," Marcus said gently. "Just thought I'd let you know." That night, Rhea stood on the back porch, staring up at the stars. The sky was clear for the first time in days. The cold air didn't bite as sharply. Inside, Marcus was reading to Lila, his voice low and steady, like a lullaby that didn't rhyme. Rhea held a small envelope in her hand, one she hadn't opened yet. It was from a clinic. The clinic. The mistake that had led to her getting that final piece of paper. The one that had given her Avery's name, months after the fact. She hadn't known what to do with it. But now, she slipped it open and removed the folded sonogram inside. It was grainy. Barely more than shadows. But the name Avery Willow was typed across the top in a machine-stamped label. She pressed the image to her chest, closed her eyes, and whispered, "You existed." The next day, she accepted Marcus's suggestion. They went to the community center. The moment she stepped inside, the noise and warmth overwhelmed her. Children chattered, paint flew, brushes dripped. It was chaos, but the good kind. A small girl with tangled curls tugged at Rhea's sleeve. "Can you draw unicorns?" Rhea hesitated, then knelt. "I think I remember how." Within 10 minutes, she was surrounded. Kids pointed at colors, asked for names, showed her their messy masterpieces like they were sacred. And Rhea laughed. Marcus, standing at the back of the room, caught the moment her laughter broke through. It wasn't guarded. It wasn't apologetic. It was real. After the session, as they walked back to the truck, Rhea looked at him. "I didn't think I could feel that again." "What?" he asked. "Joy." He smiled. "It suits you." Back at the cabin, Lila was waiting with something small in her hands. "I made this," she said proudly, handing Rhea a beaded bracelet. "It's got an A on it. For Avery." Rhea knelt, tears welling. "Why?" "Because," Lila said, "this house remembers her name." And for the first time, Rhea didn't cry because of pain. She cried because of love. That night, she wrote in her journal. "I said her name. And no one looked away. I think that's how healing begins." Spring didn't arrive with flowers in Hollow Ridge, it came with mud. Wet, stubborn, everywhere. Patches of melting snow clung to the shaded sides of hills while low fog curled around the base of the trees. But inside Marcus's cabin, the thaw had already begun long before nature caught up. Rhea moved differently now. She didn't flinch when someone said her name. She laughed, sometimes without covering her mouth. And she had stopped asking how long she could stay. Instead, she started asking questions. "What if we made space here?" she said one evening, sitting at the kitchen table with a steaming cup of mint tea. Marcus looked up from the set of shelves he was building for Lila's room. "Space? For women like me," she clarified, voice low but steady. "Women who carry grief no one wants to talk about. What if this place remembered their names too?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He set down the hammer and walked over, his hands dusty with sawdust. He pulled out a chair and sat beside her. "You're serious," he said, not as a challenge but an invitation. Rhea nodded slowly. "I can't go back to what I was. Not because I don't want to. Because I'm not her anymore. But I want to make something out of this. For Avery. For everyone who had to let go without ever being seen." A quiet settled between them. Then Marcus reached over and placed his hand gently over hers. "You already started at the day you walked in here." They called it Avery's Light at first. It was unofficial. Just a corner of the cabin with tea, journals, blankets, and soft music playing low. Rhea invited 2 women from town, one she'd met at the community center and another who came after hearing a whisper about a safe place where no one asked why you were crying. Then there were 5. Then 9. Marcus added hooks near the door for coats. Lila made a paper sign, "You're safe here," complete with crayon butterflies and glitter glue. The women came quietly, carrying stories in their eyes and silence in their bones. And when Rhea sat with them, she didn't try to fix anyone. She just listened. And sometimes, she said Avery's name out loud so they knew it was okay to say theirs too. Then the letter arrived. No return address. Just her name, Rhea Langley. Marcus found it in the mailbox and left it on the kitchen counter. Rhea stared at it for hours before opening it. Inside was a typed notice from the National Board of Medical Training. Her sudden disappearance during her final clinical rotation had triggered an audit. Now that she'd been identified in a caregiving capacity, specifically connected to a public community center, there were questions. Legal questions. She folded the letter with shaking hands and stared out the window at the snow-laced pines. "They want to take it all," she whispered. "Everything I've built." Marcus crossed the room and stood beside her. What are they threatening? If I don't explain myself, formally, they could revoke my academic credit. I'd be ineligible to reapply anywhere. Even if you're not going back? Rhea looked at him, pain sharpening her features. It's not about going back. It's about what they think they can erase. Word spread. Not through gossip, but through care. Miss Wren, the retired librarian who'd helped organize the women's book circle, suggested they hold a listening session with the town council. Not a trial. Not a defense. Just a moment to speak. Rhea resisted at first. Why should I explain myself to a room full of people who never cared? Marcus answered quietly, because maybe they'll listen now. And maybe some of them need to hear it too. So she agreed. 3 weeks later, she stood at a wooden lectern in the Hollow Ridge Civic Hall. The room wasn't packed, but it felt full. Miss Wren sat in the front row with her cane. Lila perched beside her, clutching a stuffed owl in one arm and Marcus's hand in the other. Behind them, the women who had passed through Avery's life formed a quiet wall of support. Rhea's voice trembled at first. My name is Rhea Langley. I was a top-ranking med student, on track to begin my residency when I became pregnant. Her breath caught, but she kept going. My family believed that pregnancy disqualified me. They intervened. I signed papers I didn't understand, under pressure I couldn't withstand. They ended the pregnancy against my will. A few heads turned. A few eyes widened. I left everything after that. My education. My family. My name. She paused. Let the words hang. But I didn't disappear. I built something. Not a clinic. Not a hospital. A home. A place where grief isn't silenced and names aren't erased. She looked at the council directly now. If that disqualifies me, then so be it. But I will not apologize for remembering my daughter's name. The room was so quiet you could hear Lila's owl squeak. Then, from the back, someone clapped once. Then again. And slowly, others joined. A ripple, not a wave. But enough. Outside, Marcus waited by the steps. When Rhea stepped into the cold air, she didn't say anything. Just folded into his arms. You did it, he whispered. No, she replied. We did. That night, they lit a fire behind the cabin. Rhea curled under a wool blanket, Lila beside her, Marcus sipping cocoa near the edge of the flames light. I didn't think I'd make it here, she said softly. Marcus looked over. To the fire? No, she smiled faintly. To this feeling. Of being. Real again. You were always real. I wasn't allowed to be. Lila looked up from her hot chocolate. I think Avery knew where to send you. Rhea's throat tightened. I think you're right. Marcus added another log to the fire and sat close. What happens next? He asked. Rhea looked around. The flickering light. The trees. The sky. We build more space, she said. And we say their names. All of them. Marcus smiled. We already started. That night, Rhea wrote in her journal. A name spoken aloud is a life acknowledged. And I will not go silent again. By summer, the snow had vanished, but the memory of it still lingered, in the softness of blankets folded on the porch bench, in the smell of firewood drying under the eaves, in the way Rhea sometimes looked out at the lake and touched the bracelet Lila had made for her, the one with the letter A. Avery's light had grown beyond what any of them had imagined. What began as a quiet idea in the corner of a cabin had become something real, something rooted. The townspeople, curious at first, then committed, donated supplies. Paint. Tools. Books. Blank journals with beautiful, empty pages. The back shed had been converted into a space for art and quiet. A retired carpenter offered to build shelving. Miss Wren brought boxes of poetry. And on the wall above the fireplace, Marcus hung a plaque that read in careful letters. This house remembers her name. They stopped calling it Avery's Light. Instead, everyone just started calling it the home. As if the word itself carried all it needed. Rhea didn't feel like a ghost anymore. She felt anchored. She smiled more. Laughed with Lila. Took long walks with Marcus. Sometimes she still woke up gasping from dreams where her daughter's name was drowned out by courtroom voices and sterile corridors, but she no longer ran from them. She wrote them down. She let them live. And when women arrived, quiet, hesitant, eyes full of grief they couldn't speak, Rhea met them at the door. Not with questions. Not with judgment. But with tea and silence and, when they were ready, a name. One of those women was named Celeste. Another, Jasmine. One girl, just 17, only gave the name River, and Rhea didn't ask for more. She simply handed her a journal and said, whatever name you give us, we'll keep safe. They made the circle around the backyard fire pit a sacred space. It wasn't just for talking. Sometimes, it was just for breathing. Sometimes crying. Often laughing. Sometimes singing so softly the wind had to lean in to hear. Marcus didn't take over. He never tried. He helped build what needed building, fixed what needed fixing, and listened like it was his first language. Lila, for her part, declared herself Hope Captain and created a system of welcome signs and rainbow name tags. She took her job seriously. And on the door of the front room, Rhea added a second sign, just beneath the coat hooks. You are not a burden here. You are a story still unfolding. One late August morning, a letter came again. This one didn't arrive in an unmarked envelope. It was certified. Crisp. With a seal. Marcus found it in the mailbox, glanced at the return address, and brought it inside with more care than usual. Rhea opened it while standing at the sink, a towel still draped over one shoulder. She read it slowly. Then again. They're not pursuing the review, she said softly, surprised. Marcus turned from the stove. Really? They're letting it go. No further action. No penalties. No strikes. Just. Like that? She nodded, stunned. Just like that. Marcus handed her a mug of coffee and leaned against the counter. How does it feel? Like I climbed a mountain I didn't ask to be on, and when I got to the top, I realized. I don't need their path anymore. She folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and said no more about it. They held a potluck that Sunday. People brought folding chairs, casseroles, homemade lemonade, and mismatched plates. There were kids playing tag in the tall grass, adults stringing lights between trees, and laughter everywhere. Miss Wren brought poetry again, and Lila organized a storytelling circle under the maple tree, where people could share whatever they wanted, memories, names, or just silence. As the sun began to dip low, Marcus stood up with Lila beside him. I didn't know, he began, voice a little rough, how far this would go. I just saw someone on the ice and ran. He looked at Rhea. I thought I was pulling someone out of the water. I didn't know she'd pull me out too. He gestured to Lila. She stepped forward and handed Rhea a small box. Inside was a thin wooden bracelet, handcrafted, sanded smooth, warm from being held. On the inside curve, carved in small, uneven letters, clearly Lila's, were the words. You gave her a name. You gave me one too. Tears filled Rhea's eyes, but they didn't sting. They felt like spring rain. Marcus took her hand. You saved me too, you know. I was surviving. Now I'm living. Rhea turned to the gathered crowd. For the first time, she didn't feel exposed. She felt home. That night, under a sky lit with stars and laughter echoing from the backyard, Rhea sat on the porch with Marcus beside her and Lila curled up between them. I've been thinking, she said softly. Marcus turned toward her. Yeah? I want to do more. Not just here. I want to register the home as a non-profit. Make it a place other towns can hear about. A place women know they can come. Marcus smiled. You think big. I have to, she said. She had no one saying her name for years. I don't want that for anyone else. We'll make it happen. Lila yawned and nestled closer. Are we gonna name it after her still? Rhea kissed the top of her head. Always. Months passed. The home became more than a cabin. More than a memory. It became a sanctuary. Registered. Recognized. Real. The town donated the old firehouse for expansion. Volunteers arrived with hammers, with notebooks, with cookies, with stories. Some days were quiet. Others, too full. But the foundation stayed steady. And Rhea, she spoke Avery's name often. She said it like it belonged in every sentence. Because it did. When spring came again, and the lake thawed fully, Rhea walked barefoot to the old maple tree behind the cabin. She carried a small, linen-wrapped box. Inside, the sonogram. A letter. And a white candle. Marcus didn't follow her. He stayed back, letting her walk into the clearing alone. She knelt at the tree's base and whispered, "You were never forgotten." She lit the candle. And the flame stayed lit, even in the wind. On the anniversary of Avery's birth, the home held its first official remembrance gathering. There were no speeches. Just music. Stories. And names written on river stones and tucked beneath the roots of the tree. Rhea sat with a mother who had lost twins. With a teenager who never got to name her baby. With a grandmother who said she had waited 40 years to speak a name out loud. Each woman left something behind. A ribbon. A letter. A drawing. And in return, they received only this. A place to be whole again. That evening, As twilight painted the sky, Rhea stepped out onto the porch with Marcus. "I didn't think peace would feel like this," she said. He slid his hand into hers. "How does it feel?" "Like a beginning." She paused, then looked down at her belly. "Rounded now. 31 weeks." Marcus leaned in. "Ready?" "We were always ready. We just didn't know it." When the baby was born weeks later, healthy, loud, beautiful, they named her Avery Hope Langley. Not in memory, but in promise. And in every cry, every breath, every little fist curled into sleep, Rhea knew her name would never go unsaid again.